Welcome to another episode of the Chicks on the Right podcast. Our guest today is a familiar and friendly face. It's Michele Tafoya from the Tafoya podcast. And Michele, we brought you on the show because you wrote recently an op-ed for the Washington Times about all the hullabaloo in women's basketball. And particularly, as everybody knows, there's chaos and drama between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And so we wanted to get the details straight from the horse's mouth. What is the deal with those two?
Well, look, I covered the WNBA for the first 3 years of its existence. Reggie Miller and I were I was the play-by-play voice. He was the analyst. And yes, is the league predominantly black? Yes, it is. I think the numbers around 80% of the players are African American. But here comes Caitlin Clark. And much like the analogy I look at is Tiger Woods coming to golf, right? Mm. And he's a superstar. He's not just a black player who's competitive. He's a superstar. He's a once in a lifetime. Well, that's what Caitlin Clark is. It's not her fault that she's white, but she's resented for that. Like Angel Reese and others continue to say, black women built this league, and now all of a sudden you want to give all the credit to one white woman. I think it's really unfortunate because I think what Angel Reese misses is all the other great black players who came before Caitlin Clark, like Lisa Leslie and Cheryl Swoops, who got loads of attention. And Angel Reese is used to getting loads of attention for her fashion, for all these things. I think she's having a tough time sharing the limelight. What she has said publicly is, fine, I'll be the bad guy. I'll be the nemesis of Caitlin Clark. And that way, when everyone looks back at this league and says who built it, it won't just be Caitlin Clark. It'll be me, sort of the bad guy who helped too. It'll be more than just one person. That resentment for Caitlin Clark can only be attributed to the fact that she is white and she is straight and she is damn good. She's the best player on the planet. And they're having a tough time accepting her because she's not like them.
Yeah, I like what you talked about representation in your op-ed. Yeah. And I mean, because what about the little white girls that look up to her and think, listen, she represents me. And she's
also not the first white superstar. I mean, Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Rebecca Lobo, though Rebecca's part Cuban, I know that.
Right.
But, yes, if you've got a league that's 80% black people, then you get this white superstar. Why isn't it okay for young white girls and boys to say, she looks like me?
Right.
If you can say it on the other hand,
right,
you should be able to say it this way as well, in my opinion. And certainly in a league that is, like I said, predominantly black players, suddenly here comes someone different. Yeah, she looks like me. I think that's okay.
And why not welcome the additional eyeballs to your sport? Like, how is that not good news all the way around?
It is good news all the way around. A rising tide lifts all boats. And, there are some great, great players. Asia Wilson, who plays for Las Vegas. There's a number of great players in this league who are now going to have more eyeballs on them because Caitlin Clark. But that resentment of, well, why is she bringing all the eyeballs? Is it because she's white? Well, she certainly brings additional white eyeballs. I don't think we can ignore that. But at the same time, she's just a hell of a basketball player. She's like Steph Curry.
If we don't ignore it, like, why is it a bad thing? This is what I don't understand, is like, why the resentment? Why not just enjoy the fact that there are more eyeballs on your sport, regardless of what color is bringing them in?
In a perfect world, though, we wouldn't even be talking about this. And it would be, she's just a great player. And, my daughter looks up to, like, if my daughter was a basketball player, which she's not, but if she was a basketball player, she would look up to any of these girls because they're great freaking players.
Exactly.
And who cares how much melanin they have in their skin? And the fact that we're even making this an issue just shows you how backwards we're going in society as a whole. This is all so dumb, right?
It's a great point that we do seem to be continuing to look for the victimology in it, and that's rolling us backwards. By the way, I had a great podcast episode that's forthcoming I don't know if either of you have read the book, The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff. It's a very powerful, good book about how mostly college kids, why there's so much depression and how they have become so like they're looking to be offended. Now, we all know this. We all see it. Those of us who are observing can see it. And then the book now has turned into a film, The Coddling of the American Mind. And I would recommend it to everybody. Give up a few, Ted Lassos or whatever, and watch something that will really make you think and also understand maybe even your own kids, especially if they're in this generation of college. So it follows these college kids. There are 4 or 5 of them. 3 of them who came from outside of the United States came to America looking for real debate and real argument, and it's going to be great, and everyone's going to, it's going to be freedom of speech. And they've come here and they're like, what the hell is going on here? Yeah. I can't say anything. And how they became sort of indoctrinated into thinking that everyone's out to get them. They got taught about microaggressions, all of this stuff, and then how they kind of came out of it. It is remarkable. It is inspiring. It gives you a picture into what kids are, why people are believing this stuff about microaggressions.
I really hope that we're turning the page, though. I hope that the pendulum is swinging back, because I see a lot of the Gen Zers are becoming like, we're kind of sick of this. Yeah. And we're trying to be like, I try to tell my daughter, who is a Gen Zer, our youngest, our Gen Z or 15-year-old. I think that's Gen Z, right? Is that Gen Z or is that Gen Alpha? I have no idea.
She might be on the cusp.
She may be on the cusp. But I try to, instill in her more critical thinking. I'm like, why do you feel this way? Why do you think this way? Like I think that's been lacking. You're right, because I think a lot of these kids have been coddled. But I do think that the youngest generation, maybe it's just who I see on a day-to-day basis, they tend to be a little bit more combative and like a little more challenge the status quo than the generation before them. I hope that's the case. I hope, because they've gotten soft. They have gotten soft.
That's true.
I know. And the world can't accommodate that. Like America can't afford to accommodate that, right?
No.
Because it's going to put us in the toilet, frankly, if we're just all soft. I'm glad you brought that up, though, and one of the messages of this film is to put your ideas on trial. Because no one does that in college. You got to believe this way, or, write your paper the way I asked you to, or... And without challenging ideas. It reminds me of when my kid was little, my boy was little, and he was afraid that he was going to get attacked by a shark in his bed. And I remember reading up on cognitive behavior therapy. And so what you need to challenge people on is, well, where's your evidence? Like, what shows you that this is good? So I'd say to him, well, have you seen any sharks on our street, on our block, in our neighborhood? No. When was the last time you saw a shark in the house? So once you start to make them critically think and think cognitively about what is the reality of this, they can only come to some conclusions that make actual sense. So anyway, we're far afield here, but again, it's these players thinking that it's targeted at them and that they are being microaggressioned. Targets of microaggressions.
A lot of victimology.
Yes.
Happening. And that's the same with the transgenders in sports. I think that whole thing that we're seeing happening all over the country. I mean, even in spite of the executive orders, Trump's executive orders, we're seeing biological males crushing women all over the country in all different kinds of sports. And to me, it's a lack of common sense. And it goes back to the whole, well, we're victims, or we feel like we're entitled to
we're
this.
Marginalized.
Right.
Yeah. But I feel like people are getting, there's more bravery when it comes to speaking out against that. I mean, it's happening more and more, but we're also seeing more pushback about it. I hope.
I hope.
At least it seems that way to me. But then you watch, the teammate of AB Hernandez, who's like, I'm so excited that AB placed ahead of me and I support him. I mean, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
It's so masochistic.
I'm an ally, yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that it's very easy to go that direction if you're a young person and you've seen all this support and this, virtue signaling around AB Hernandez. And but it is inspiring now to see men and women coming out and saying, this is so absurd and so absurdly unfair. I mean, period, the end. If we say we want a fair society and that, but this is okay. I mean, again, it's absurd because I don't care how many puberty blockers you take or how many hormones. You were born with a certain chromosomal makeup. You don't have a uterus. That means you don't have a period every month like these other girls you're competing against. And by the way, they might be competing the day of their period. You don't have boobs. So we're built differently. Your hips, your pelvis is structured differently. Your muscle mass is different. I don't care that you want to present as a girl or identify. That's up to you. But you can't compete in our division because we have our own division for a reason.
Why is this hard?
It's
Why?
not. It's not. I think a lot of the
isn't.
pushback that you talk about is because it's Trump who's put this executive order, and no one wants to say that Trump is right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think there are a lot of people who feel like maybe it's the people, and at least this is how I thought at the beginning, the people who actually never played sports and never worked really hard for something like this their whole lives. And then they got to a point where they had a chance for a scholarship, and then that scholarship can be taken away. Because if you look at it on the flip side, like you don't see girls going into boys sports.
No. And why do you
see
think
this
that is?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? It's
We
because
all
they
know
can't
why.
compete,
Right. We all know why. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it's I have a younger. Our youngest is a swimmer, and so when Riley Gaines came out and started doing all this, I was like, bravo to her, because opportunities are being taken away from girls, scholarships are being taken away, and so where are the feminists? Like, I look around, I'm like, where are they?
I know. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you guys before because I've said it to other people. I know a former NFL player who has daughters who are like superb athletes, college bound, the whole bit, Division I, and asked him to please stand up for this, and he was afraid. He said, I'm afraid it'll hurt the brands that I work for and that I represent. Now, fortunately, some other athletes, Aaron Rodgers, Brian Urlacher, others are coming out and saying it. But this fear of losing sponsorships and stuff.
That's the problem.
And you talk about Riley Gaines. I knew someone, I got to be very careful about this, who was covering the NCAA swimming championships when Leah Thomas was in the pool. And this person called me for advice about being a poolside reporter. And how do I do this? If Leah Thomas wins, what questions can I ask? Mm-hmm. And we talked about it. And the fear for this reporter was, I got to be politically correct, even though, I know Olympic swimmers who are so adamant that this is unfair, but they can't speak out.
It's just, that's unbelievable.
It is. It's unbelievable.
And what really kills me is when you see Riley, and we've talked about this on our show about, Riley's been interviewed and she's talked about how they literally were groomed. That's the only word that I could use to describe it, how they were groomed in these like courses beforehand on how they were to deal with Leah when Leah came into that situation. And this is, this is what you're supposed to act like. Yeah. When he gets here, I say he because it is a male. Like, this is how you're supposed to be, inclusive with this individual. And like, they were training the girls on how to act, which is absurd to me because to me, that's grooming. It's like, you have a guy that's going to come into the locker room and show all of his junk. Mm-hmm. And this is we're going to make arrangements for him to do that. And so in order to do that, we're going to groom you on how to act when he invades your space. It's absurd.
It's absurd. Really weird that the adults in the room are willing to make these accommodations because, we actually have a trans swimmer on our team. Okay, this is so new and novel, and we're going to get a lot of attention about this. So we better do it right, which means we're going to accommodate the minority marginalized, who they say is marginalized,
right?
To hell with the girls. It's yes, that UPenn team that Leah Thomas swam for, was told, if you speak out about this, it's going to affect your job prospects, maybe even your grades. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, and related, but tangentially, I would like to ask actually both of you, like on a scale of 0 to -0, how surprised were you to discover the leaked medical records of Algerian boxer Imane, whatever his name is? How surprised were you to see that it turns out that's a dude?
Yeah.
I was looking at the reports and I was like, is this actually just this last couple of days? I thought, is this old? This is everyone knows this, right? Everyone knew. I honestly didn't think it was news at first until I saw that it was this leaked thing. It is not surprising, and it's baffling to me how so many people wanted to make excuses for this human and say, look, there are some other factors here. It's like, okay,
it's like that's a dude. That is a dude. Hello.
And here we gave up 2 gold medals in women's boxing to men.
Yeah.
As I say that out loud, I think about it from the context of the history books and how this will be looked at 50, 100 years from now, and people will be going, they did what?
They're so stupid. Like they did it for the sake of feelings.
Correct.
That's what they did.
Correct.
So Daisy brought up Trump and the executive orders before. I mean, the fact that he enacted these executive orders saying it is illegal, essentially, to allow biological men to, insert themselves into women's sports, and yet it's these blue states that keep allowing it. So what do you think about the executive orders ultimately forcing the hands of those states, or will they? What is it going to take to get them to
I think
comply?
it's going to take federal funding. I think it's follow the money. I think it's going to come down to money. And I know the DOJ is going to do some investigating into this. Here in Minnesota, where I live, we have state softball championships going on, and there is a biological boy identifying as a girl pitching for a team that is kicking the crap out of it. No one can hit off this pitcher. And
is that the one with the 14 shutout innings? Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah.
Yes. So we're now, and my daughter plays softball. I've never seen a pitcher shut out a team entirely like this.
Yeah.
And so it's again, it's like, now that doesn't just affect one, that affects an entire team and an entire tournament.
They were they were reigning state champions, and then this dude comes in and just busts all that wide open. It's not okay. It's
not okay. And
is it a game of chicken though? Do you think that ultimately they'll go through with pulling the funding, and will that finally be what it takes to get these states to comply, or do you think it's even going to? How far do you think this fight is going to go?
I don't know. It's going to go as far as these governors want it to. And if you look at Tim Walz and Gavin Newsom as the governors of these 2 states, and then, of course, in Washington and Oregon, where the other events happen, we know these are deeply blue states.
But Gavin said to Charlie Kirk, he even acknowledged this is not fair.
You know what? The problem with that statement that he gave to Charlie Kirk was he said, I acknowledge it's not fair. But he never said he was going to do anything about it.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the problem. It's the doing. This is what my husband always says. People need to stop talking and start doing. It's the doing.
And Gavin Newsom is famous for that.
He said he was going to clean up homelessness 16 years ago. It's gotten worse.
He could do it for Xi. He just can't do it for us.
Right. That's exactly right. And by the way, California, he's talking to China again. Anyway, about cooperation. So Gavin Newsom. Anyway, so yes, it's astonishing to me, but for some people, this is it hits them in their core that we need to be inclusive, and they don't, again, I want them to be challenged on their beliefs. I want them to have to look at evidence and answer to the the actual evidence and the facts of the case.
And data and statistics, and not just feels.
Yeah,
not just your feels. Yeah.
Right.
And the argument shifts. I mean, you notice it shifting because sometimes you'll see the argument become something like, well, this impacts so few people. And then you start reading more and more accounts of it happening, and then that argument is quickly going to go away. Because
let me quote the great J.D. Vance and saying, "Do you hear yourself, Martha? It's just a few apartment buildings that are taken over by terrorists." I mean, so we talk about a few. Oh, it's just a few murders. Oh no, that anti-Semitism is just hurting a few people.
Right. It affects just a few girls' lives.
It's just a few. But this thing has a ripple effect. You know, you throw one stone into a perfectly calm lake, there are ripples. And so it affects the girl, it affects her parents, it affects her school, it affects so many. And it's not just one for one. You get a male taking the top spot in a track meet, everybody move down a step. Yeah, you know. And by the way, the message that it's sending is so powerful that the girls, they don't matter anymore.
Yeah. And not only that, but it's not even the girls that are up on the podium that had to move down a notch. It's every single little girl that thinks, why even bother? Why? I'm not going to even bother to start training in that particular sport, because why bother if I'm going to get kicked out or kicked off of that podium by a dude, because these adults in the room won't protect me.
They won't grow a spine. And I just thought of something, as you said, all the little girls watching. What about the little boys watching, and the ones who maybe can't come in last in their track meets, and then they go, what if I grow my hair
and cheat,
put a little blush on, and say I'm a girl, then I can go win. So, and you know, we need more spine. And it's sad to me that people like Martina Navratilova, who is a very prominent member of the LGBT community, is saying this is absurd. It's nonsense. Even, Caitlyn Jenner. Gosh, I can't believe I said Jennings. Yeah. Caitlyn Jenner. J.K. Rowling talks about this stuff. She has gotten absolutely fried for her, except that she has a lot of support too. But the people that go after her really go after her. And so, we need more men wearing the shirts that save women's sports. We need more spine, and we need good people to run for office.
For sure. When politics and pop culture and sports collide, there is no one better to talk to than you, Michele Tafoya. So we're very, very glad to have had you. Tell people how they can listen to your show. You can, anywhere you get your podcast. It's the Michele Tafoya podcast. And so we're on Rumble, we're on YouTube, we're on Apple, Spotify, and you can follow me on X at Michele with one L _Tafoya. Tafoya. Thank you so much for having me.